college football, the playoff was announced yesterday. And in the
I got
first
something
year of
for
the
that.
12 teams, you got something for me? Oh, here we go. Look at this. Look at this beautiful graphic that Zach has put out for us. Of course, I'm loving that 5-12 matchup, a rematch of the 2021 6A state championship game. Cade Klubnik and Austin Westlake against Quinn Ewers of Southlake Carroll. Now, how the turntables. The Austin kid is playing at Clemson, and the Carroll kid, who is committed to Ohio State, is the quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. That'll be a ton of fun. But you notice that 11 seed, the Ponies of SMU. Now, this is where the controversy came in yesterday. First off, Penn State at 6. Penn State hasn't beaten anybody. Like, they got a good roster, sure. But literally, actually, I'll bring up this point later. Because the point of contention was SMU and Alabama for that last spot in there, which was the 11 seed. And the committee got it right. They absolutely got it right by picking SMU.
Mm-hmm.
SMU sits there at 11-2, Alabama at 9-3, and yet all these Crimson Tide people, including two of which were on your ESPN panel, embarrassing, by the way, Alabama's greatest ever head coach, Nick Saban, and national championship winning quarterback, Greg McElroy, both on there, and talking about how it's unfair. Alabama's in the SEC. They have better wins. They play better teams. And then it becomes this thing of, well, Alabama and the rest of the SEC teams shouldn't schedule tough non-conference games anymore. Two things here. First,
a lot of them don't, but go ahead.
First off, every time we were talking about which teams were going to get in leading up to this final seeding, it was about who they lost to. Everyone, right? Boise State should have that 3 because their loss is to Oregon, not the fact that they're 12-1 and won their conference. It was that their loss was to Oregon. And back to Penn State, Joey Galloway, one of the great empty heads on ESPN, puts out there a few weeks after saying Indiana's quarterback shouldn't play in the biggest game of the year because it might cost them a chance at the playoff. Just fucking dumb. He puts out there, talking about Penn State. He says, well, they don't have great wins, but they did play Oregon and Ohio State this year. Okay, fucking congrats. They're in the conference. They're in the same conference as them. Okay? They made it. They played Oregon in the conference championship game because the division that they play in absolutely sucks. And we're just congratulating them for having these teams on the schedule. They lost both of those games. Why are we congratulating them for that? This is supposed to be non-participation trophies. And then, so we talk about losses all the way through, and then we get to Alabama and SMU, it's like, well, who'd they beat? Who'd they beat? And then the graphics come up, and it does not have the overall win-loss record, this graphic on ESPN. It instead has a couple of other different stats, including wins against teams above 500, which still, it was an advantage to SMU, but that just totally neglects the fact that Alabama lost to 2 teams whose records are 500. They lost to 2 6-6 teams. And they're trying to tell us, it's like, who did SMU beat? SMU went to their conference championship game. We're rewarding Penn State for that, even though they don't have any good wins. Why can't we reward SMU for that? And by the way, we want to look at the losses? Okay, fine. SMU's losses are better. They lost to 2 teams who were in the top 15 at the time by a combined 6 points. Alabama lost to 2 6-6 teams. Like, they think that they just throw on these crimson uniforms and slap a number on the side of their helmet and they're just fucking in the playoff. That's not how this works. And I got Saban complaining about it. I'm like, this is what you should want as a coach. The better teams, the better resumes are getting in. Like, I'm sorry, man. You did not deserve to be there just because you play in Tuscaloosa. I'm sorry. That's not how this works. And thankfully, which was not a guarantee at all, the committee got it right. And if SMU lost by 3 touchdowns to Clemson, I don't know that they would have. I don't know that they would have put the Ponies in there. But they deserved to be in there. And these Alabama fans have completely lost the plot because they've won a bunch in the past. They should be in there. Like, I'm sorry, man. Beat your 6-6 teams. Beat your 6-6 opponents. And if you now want to bitch and say, oh, well, fine. You're not going to get anything out of us. We're not going to schedule tough non-conference games anymore. Okay, run it the fuck back, because you know who you played this year in the non-conference? A 5-7 Wisconsin team, Mercer and USF. Okay, when are you going to eliminate the tough non-conference games, Alabama?
Well, on top of that, they're going to start a home and away with Florida State next year, which had an abysmal season.
Yeah, Florida State sucks. They've
But
had one good year the last 5. They blow. They fucking suck.
They have Ohio State in 2027. But
Right.
you're
Okay,
right.
get rid of it. Get rid of it if you're so scared about it.
Yeah.
Or here's what they could do, Zach. Here's what they could do. They could win those games. You know? Because if you win a tough non-conference game, that would absolutely pay dividends. Absolutely it does. And yet it's because I bet that did help Penn State in a weird way. It doesn't get them in the playoffs, but they beat a West Virginia team on the road week 1 in a true road game. And West Virginia was whatever, 7-5, 8-4, like nothing great. But that's a Power 4 team you played on the road that is bowl eligible and won. Alabama played one other Power 4 team that was not bowl eligible. That doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. I said this about Baylor for years, man. If you just schedule a whatever in the Power 4, a Vanderbilt, a Minnesota, or Illinois, who was bad for so long, like that instantly looks better than playing Rice, even though Rice might be a better team, right? That always comes to fruition. That always looks better to the people that are reviewing this after the season. And now Alabama's crying poor because they lost to 2 6-6 teams. Pretty simple. Don't lose to those teams, and you're good. Because if addressing the elephant in the room with this was not a great SEC year. I know everyone just thinks they're awesome because they played in the conference, but like even some of these teams that are ranked, like LSU, who Baylor's playing, LSU was ranked 10 out of the 12 weeks, and they have one ranked win this year. You know, I mean, you look at A&M. Like, how many signature wins do they have? They've been in the rankings all year. Ole Miss lost 3 games. They were still in the playoff conversation until the last week. Like, it's just, it goes back to that Joey McGuire quote of we're just looking at the patch and not who they're playing, how they're playing, what their record is. And we all knew it. I mean, it's the worst kept secret in the college football playoff. But I am stunned that the committee got it right. Stunned. And I mean, good for SMU, whose fans are fucking insufferable, but good for them. I mean, they joined the conference. They pay their way in. They pay their way into college, and then they get on the dean's list. So, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, they deserved to be there. And this could be a landmark, a watershed moment in college football playoff lore as they pick SMU over Alabama. Would they do that if Saban was the head coach at Alabama? No friggin' chance. No shot. No shot they keep Saban out. But with Kalen DeBoer, even a guy who was in the national championship last year, they're like, well, this is not Saban's Alabama. And you get a rematch of last year's semifinal in is that the Citrus Bowl? Alabama-Michigan.
Yeah.
Great matchup. Tom Brady's last career college game was against Alabama in the Orange Bowl for Michigan. But they're playing 7-5 Michigan. And it's like, yeah, man, that's the price of not making the playoff. By the way, I was listening on audiobook on this journey across the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. The Relia Quest Bowl.
Oh, sorry. I don't want to take away from the prestige there.
Yeah.
The Relia Quest Bowl.
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't even pour over Notre Dame's resume. I don't know how good that is.
Here, I'll pull that up real quick.
They beat A&M on the road. Like that's something.
Yeah.
right?
But did they have another? Well, they also.
But like they've been in the top 10 all year, so I don't even look at it. It's the same thing with Penn State.
So let's
Oh, well,
not
they're in
forget
the top 10, so
Notre Dame lost week 2 against Northern Illinois.
correct. Lest we forget that.
And then they went on a run. They do have wins over number 15 Louisville, number 24 Navy.
Okay, another team that SMU beat, by the way, Louisville.
Number 24 Navy, pretty handily. And then number 19 Army, pretty handily. The 2 Service Academy wins. I know. I mean, they are ranked
great
teams
this year, but
yeah.
I mean, Navy's been in free fall since then, and Army's just kind of hanging on. But they did win their conference. Shout out to Army, man. By the way, their coach, which is Jeff, not Todd Monken, is also in talks with Carolina. And if I'm UNC, like that is a good bet. I mean, the Belichick thing, it's got too many factors to it. It's high risk, high reward. I think the Monken signing would be low risk, high reward, getting him on as your head coach. But maybe that's just me. But yes, the committee got it right. Alabama's getting it wrong. Saban's getting it wrong. ESPN's getting it wrong. I mean, they were so befuddled that SMU got in, and they were like trying to give all their excuses. And it's funny, they had Rhett Lashley, the SMU coach, on like a live interview there. And Reese Davis asked him some question about like, was it nerve-wracking waiting for this? And Lashley was like, well, your producers certainly made it that way. I'm like, this is kind of incredible. I don't know that we've seen, and it has been going on for years, to be fair, but I don't know that we've seen a network control a sport quite like this, ESPN in college football. There is absolutely a narrative out there, and it could change from year to year, but they control it 100% of the time. They control it. And that's why it was such an upset that SMU got in, because no way the ESPN guys would have them in. You know what I mean? Like, no way. But this is good. Is SMU, they're at Penn State, right?
I think they could put, knock off Penn State, and then you'd have SMU Boise. Here, I'll pull that back up.
Yeah. Do you have that in front of you? I want to see who Notre Dame's playing.
Notre Dame's at Indiana.
Indiana. Yes. The in-state rivalry. Winner just gets Georgia. That's probably fair. That's honestly, that's probably the fairest part of the bracket. Like Notre Dame has been a good, not great by that resume we just talked about. 2 wins over service academies that were both ranked wins, whatever. But you still schedule service academies every year. Indiana, not a great schedule, and lost the big game against Ohio State, but they deserve to be in the playoff. And yeah, that could be a wild one, man, of Boise and SMU or Penn State. I give SMU a real shot in that game, man.
Yeah,
I do. Because again, I don't see, if we want to talk about where are the wins, who did they beat? Like, we have to ask that question to Penn State as well.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.